Alright, we have the arms painted, have the motors completed, they're all mounted, bullet connectors on, lubed the bearings, very important. I use a bearing oil made by Trinity. You get these I get it at a local hobby shop. I'll have to find a link for you. It comes with a needle applicator, and then I just squirt a dab on each bearing in the back. And then actually inside the motor, you have to go inside the motor bell and get into that bearing. It's important that you lube the bearings because these spin at a fairly high RPM, 1200 kV. Okay, motors are done, bullets on. Arms are painted. So I think what we can do now is go ahead and take our top frame plate, and we will start installing the spacers and the screws. We'll go ahead and put our two frame plates together, and then we can install the arms. We'll install the motors onto the arms, and then we can start setting up some electronics, getting MultiWii 2.1, the new release out, installed on the board, and get our radio set up and go from there. So let's do that. Let's put these right here, pull out the old screw and spacer drawer, and we've cut these spacers previously. I think there's 14 or so of them, half-inch spacers, and we're going to go ahead and install them on the board or on the frame plate. In the previous video when we were test fitting, I had the screws coming from the bottom up. We don't need to do that this time. It's going to be a cleaner installation if we go from the top down. And that's what we will do. Okay. So, every place gets a spacer except for where the arms mount, so we won't get a spacer on these 5 holes. On these 5, and these 5. Every place else gets a screw and a spacer. Just throw it in, and remember the dome side that it creates when we cut it goes up. Slide it on. And we're just going to do that for the rest of the areas. Okay, so now we have spacers installed. And bring the bottom plate back over, and we can join the two halves. We want to make sure that the motor wires come outside of where the arm will lay, so we kind of need to tuck them back when we make the two frames. But we don't have to worry about that right now. We don't have the screws in it, so it's pretty easy. We can just put the two frames together and worry about it later. I'm going to bring all my wires up through this center hole, all my signal wires in my back BEC, however you want to say it. And I should probably do it the right way up. I got a spacer, it's won't be hateful. Fit it first since it's going to be done. And we're just gonna guide the screws in. Yep. Looks much cleaner with the screw heads on top. So now everything looks fine. I'm not hitting anything. Everything seems to be out of the way. So we'll flip it upside down. We'll go ahead and put all our lock nuts on. They're all sunk to the bottom. Hate that. Put lock nuts on and we'll go ahead and get everything cinched up. Okay, man. Now we're just going to cinch it down. And you don't want to like tighten this one fully and then that one fully and then that one fully. We're going to go ahead and just get them all partially tight. And then we want to check and make sure that the frame is square. And if it's not, we can twist it or tweak it and then lock the pieces together. But if you just go and tighten them all as tight as they'll go automatically, you don't have any adjustability. So we're gonna just snug these down, but not crank them yet. And then check for squareness. Get them all partially done. And then we just want to check and make sure that the frame is not twisted. Just line up the front and back. Mine looks good, looks straight. So I'm going to go ahead and cinch some of them down. I'm going to start kind of like a car, doing car tires. I'm going to start up here or back here. I'm going to clench that down fairly tight. And I'm going to go up here. I'm going to clench that down. And I'll go here, clench it. And I'm just going to kind of instead of going one right after another, see if I randomize it a little bit, maybe it won't torque and twist into it. Now I'm going to check again. We should be straight. This is really perfect. Actually, up here. Now, you this actually turns flex in the frame. That is what you have. Just make some runs away. You can watch it too. Do you want for extra fingers? But from what I found, I'm doing this a few times. This turn has very little flex in it. I mean, it's not carbon fiber. You should be the fiber, but there's very little flex. There we go. Pretty rigid. Now that we have that done, we can go ahead and I insert the screws for the arms. We get a backstop screw. This is where the arm will actually hit and then stop, so that you know that you have the right length. You get 4 of these, 1 in each arm, 2 fronts, 2 rear. Remember to pull your wires up so that you don't snag them. Sometimes they want to be hateful, piss you off. So you gotta help it. Get those in, we can go ahead and put all the other screws in for the arms. Again, make sure you're not catching the motor wires. I just hold tight, that's why it looks like parts of them with screws. Depends, I don't have a tight hole always, guys. So you can draw my little warning if you like the screws on. Figure out. I guess. I'll do what I'm doing. And we'll just flip it over and put lock nuts on these as well. I can get my hands to do it. If you, no, I'm using these spacers, lock nuts. Oh my god, go on. The long arms go in the back, of course, short arms in the front. So we're going to take one of the rears. It slides in all the way up until it hits that stop, and then it's done. And then we can go ahead and tighten her down. Then we have the first arm on. Looks good. Then repeat that process, the other rear arm. Slides in all the way until it, what's up? Tighten in. There we go, 2 arms down. Let's line it up, everything looks nice and square. But we're going to go a little curl on the other side. We go to the front one. The inside nice. Just press it until it hits the stop screw and tighten it down. Good, good. Last one. Same as the others. Put it in. Push it in until it gets up. And tighten it down. So there we have arms on our spider quad. Everything seems to line up really well. Very, very rigid, if I do say so myself. Okay. Now what we can do is go ahead and mount our motors. When we do mount them, we want the wire to come off to the side like so that the motor wires are. Alright, so this one would mount like that. That one is mounting like that. And then we can just go ahead and put our screws in, lock them down. And we can go ahead and get the landing gear on and get all the electronics hooked up and go from there. So let me put the motors on. Push through. Screws line up. Shut down. Now lock that on. Let's move that motor off. Motor's tight. Now, I use Velcro strapping. You get this at Lowe's or Home Depot. I think you can get it at Hobby King too. But I go ahead and I fasten the motor wire. Like so. But then I strap it down so that it's not just free hanging. I love this strapping. Get it nice and tight. Wrap it around. And I press the motor wires down and I bring that up so I can make that as tight as possible in there. And then we'll get zip ties too. I've got holes drilled out in this bottom and we'll zip tie those wires down. But for right now, kind of get them out of the way with this stuff. Okay, that's one motor down. I'm going to do the other three and then I'll come back.